So for entrepreneurs, here's just some tips. So I've started 4 businesses. I've mentored a lot. I've done a lot of other. I'm doing a little bit of a mini fund to invest in startups. So these are some tips. First of all, everyone kind of has to think about this life cycle. Most of these tips are going to be from when you do your MVP to product market fit. Having mentored a lot of startups, founders, this is the hardest thing. I am really bad at mentoring other entrepreneurs that get to product market fit. It's like this journey you kind of have to go on yourself because you have to be calling customers every day, trying things constantly. It's really hard to coach someone on that. My coaching is just keep grinding it out and you'll get there, which doesn't seem super helpful as a coach. I hate to say that, but that's the one. But once you get to $1 million, we can help you scale a lot. So here's some tips. I put them in 6 buckets: product market fit, team building, company building, venture capital, exit planning, and growth hacks. I originally did this with Todd Olson, who's way more famous than I am. Jim has not done it here yet, have you? That's your next task.
But he needs some positive PR in the
area. Do you have a restraining order?
Yes.
Okay, well, all right. We'll see.
From that event.
He does have, yeah. I don't know him. Oh, by the way, if you're from Topsail, I do not know Todd Olson. I hate his guts. All right, D cut. But I have to give, some of these came from him, and I just take credit for them. It's what we do as CEOs. All right, so for product market fit, one thing I learned from Amazon was, they would do all these things, they would test, and they would, they never cared about profitability, and, they're Amazon, but they have this model of first, forget about unit economics and things like that, which is the opposite of what they tell you in the MBA program. But get customers using it and then figure out the economics. It sounds obvious, but as a founder, you're kind of wrapped up in all that, and it's hard to pick apart the parts. You got to just nail that customer delight aspect. Yep. This is a Todd one. Start with pain. So this is the trickiest thing with customers, and it's taken me 10 years to get good at this. But you have to know, being an introvert, when I'm on a sales call, my natural reaction is just talk my brains out so that I can get through it, right? But if you're talking, you're not selling. So the best salespeople go in, and they'll ask these leading questions, and then they'll let there be dead space. And then that dead space is when you get those insights from the customer. It's taking me a long time to get that skill. Things like what if there's a pie chart of your time, what are you spending the most time on? Why are you not using the software in this way? Did you know this feature existed? Asking these questions and then leaving dead space is kind of the best tip there. It's kind of cool. So having been at this 30 years, we didn't even know the phrase MVP and product market fit. Now they're kind of part of the vernacular, and there's all these books out there. A lot of the Andreessen Horowitz guys have great content around this. There's Brad Feld. He's a TechCrunch. He's a Techstars. Yeah, Techstars guy. He has a really good product. I prefer the Andreessen one. Todd likes the Brad Feld blog post on product market fit. But they have a lot of good tips there. Team building, this is one I learned painfully, is once you kind of get into this inflection point, you need to hire, it's kind of tricky, you need to, let's say you're a first salesperson. As a founder, you're kind of doing that you're doing the sales yourself, and then your intuition is to hire just a salesperson. What you need to do is find someone that can be the sales leader, but doesn't mind selling for 6 to 12 months. That's the tricky part. It's easy to find sales leaders. It's hard to find sales leaders that will roll up their sleeves and actually sell stuff, which sounds strange, but I can promise you, Jennifer can attest, I've been to 15 of those. I had one guy that wouldn't show me the pipeline. It's like, I'd like to see a pipeline report. No. Why? I will reveal it to you when it's ready. I want to see it now. No, I'll reveal it when I've got it perfect. Okay. He wouldn't go to see customer. He wouldn't go to trade shows either. It's weird as thing. Probably the smartest thing I did at Stingray Software. This is going to lead to the tweener question. Is I had no idea what I was doing, and I went to Professor Dr. Miller, and I was like, that's 3 years into Stingray Software. I really need someone to help me think about all this. I can't raise VC. There's people that may or may not want to acquire the company. How do I think about it? And I glommed on to Richard Holcomb. So he was 10 years ahead of me. He was a South Carolina undergrad, NC State grad school, so we had a lot of affinity there. He's now a farmer, so he tapped out. And he just had a baby, so he's kind of under wacky kind of in tech founder. Richard Holcomb's there. And But he was a great mentor. He was kind of like, no, here's how you need to think about it. Here's the things you need to do. And he got to the point where it was kind of ridiculous. I was using a lot of his time. And he basically said, what we do, and I said, Richard, I need to pay you. Can I give you some, some money or some stock options or something? He said, I won't take your money or your stock, but I want you to pay it forward. So I have been working on that for quite a long time, but that's kind of how we do it. In our ecosystems, like you guys have, we can't afford to be, if you go to Silicon Valley, everything's transactional. No one will give you advice unless you're an advisor and they have a quarter point. It's very transactional. All the advice is behind a paywall, basically, and you have to kind of pay to play. We can't do that in our ecosystems, and we shouldn't, because it slows down the wheel, the flywheel. So, number one, have a mentor. Number two, when you're in a position to be a mentor, you got to pay it back.
Scott, what did Hot Software do? What did his company do?
Yeah, so Richard Hot, HAHT Software was his third company. The one before then was basically an ODBC, API that aggregated things.
That's the whole language. What is the ODBC?
Yeah, database connectors. He had kind of like channel advisor for databases, basically. And then Hot Software, it was an early web kind of integrated WYSIWYG and web server kind of thing for B2B. It was very far ahead of its time. HAHT was the acronym, the last names of the four founders. Fun, deep RDU startup cut there. And then another mentor I had is Chris Evans. He started DaVinci Systems, which was early in email. And Bill Nessy, he's in Atlanta now. He kind of abandoned our ecosystem. But another NC State guy. Hello? Yeah. Oh, okay. Venture capital. It's queuing those all up and shooting down. Okay. The other thing is, the fun thing about starting a company is you're setting the culture of the company. We didn't spend a whole hour on that, but part of what I like is what's the cadence? Like, are you gonna have weekly meetings? Are you gonna have Friday beer parties? How transparent are you going to be with folks? How secretive are you going to be? You really need to think a lot about this. I was kind of a skeptic on this, to be honest with you, but now I've come full circle the other way. I spent a lot of time thinking about what's the culture of this, and I think being on company 4, I have the flexibility to think longer term and think about what's this going to look like when we're 200 million. Certainly these things we're doing today aren't going to scale. We need to start fixing that today. But even if you're super early, this is a good time to start building some cadence and thinking about those important things. My golden rule is, I should want to work here. And that's simple, but it actually is hard to deliver. Another thing, if you're interested in this topic, the big game changer for me is Reed Hastings, who started Netflix. I actually know him from Stingray, oddly enough, Stingray. We had a partnership with another company he had, so I've met Reed Hastings several times. He came out with this, it's called the Netflix Culture Book, and if you're interested in this topic, look at that. And it just had all these aha moments for me. Like the biggest clarity from that is, if you study top performing teams, what kills them is not getting rid of underperformers. And as an introvert guy that's scared of conflict, you have to drag me through hot tar to fire somebody before I learn about this. Now I'll fire you on the spot. Boom, Jim, you're fired. But what happens is, and if you think about it, think about the last team you were on and the underperformer. If no one gets rid of that underperformer, they drag down the team like 10x for their percentage of the team. It's crazy to watch this in action. Because what starts to happen is everyone's like, why am I working so hard? This guy's not doing anything. And his management's stupid. They don't see he's not doing his part. And it really starts, the whole thing unwinds if you don't do that. But if you're interested in this topic, there's more research there with that Netflix culture guy. All right, I'm going to give it a second. How do we do with the arrow buttons? This computer doesn't have an arrow button. This computer predates arrows. We need to get one of your sponsors to donate a new computer. We're going to get them. All right. So there's kind of two schools of thought of venture capital. Some folks will tell you, you should try to create scarcity and really only pitch when you've got a warm VC. You get one shot, and you gotta really take advantage of that one shot and do it at the perfect time, with the perfect partner, etc. I'm basically a promiscuous pitcher. I will pitch anybody. I will literally, I will, if we're on an elevator with someone, and I'm kind of dying for them to ask about Spiffy so I can work on my pitch and be like, yeah, let me tell you about Spiffy. And because what I found is, for me, it's like growth hacking, where if I can pitch and then get a no from you and at least understand why it was no, I can change my pitch. Also, I found my yeses have all been paths from no. They'll say, well, I only do B2B SaaS. Do you know anyone crazy enough to invest in service businesses? Well, I heard Joe over at this family office did one time. What's Joe's last name? Boom, I'll chase down Joe. He's a no. Well, no, I think what he meant was Bob over here, so now I'll chase down Bob, get a no. Then finally I get to a yes. So every no is a path to a yes. And if you think like that, I'm constantly pitching because it makes me a better pitcher, and I can get through all those no's to the yes finally.
Careful, you sound like a stalker.
Without stalking. I only pitch one time, I do not follow them home. I do not post pictures of them on social media. The other thing about VCs is you're going to be with these people for so I started ChannelAdvisor in 2001, and it just came off the board in 2022. So it's 21 years I was with that company. These are more like children than like little things that you're going to spin up for a year or two. So the average length of a company is 5 to 10 years. And you're going to be with these people a lot. So the more due diligence, go have a bunch of meals with these folks, see how they treat the wait staff. We had a board member, it was not anyone in this room, at ChannelAdvisor, and I went to a meal, and he was kind of an a-hole to the help, and I was kind of like, that's kind of weird. And then it turns out, he was a rough board member. We had a rough, 6 years there. See, sometimes you can't, right? You may be looking at me like, I've done 100 pitches and got nothing but no's. If that's your case, go with whoever can give you money. But if you can pick, I've been fortunate enough in later stages to get multiple term sheets, and I have several times taken a lower valuation term sheet because I felt like it was a better people match than the higher dilution term sheet. The delays of the projector. Actually, we need a new projector too. You're the owner. You need a new projector. Here's DJ and Jason. I give Jason a lot of crap, but how many people can you say, hey, I know we just did this channel thing, and I'm going to do a car wash. And they're like, sign me up.
Are you saying Jason's in the penguin industry?
No, Jason's on the left. The penguin is an anonymous employee. We had an exit question. The best exits, I see a lot of, in the pitch that a lot of first-time entrepreneurs do, they talk about, I'm building this company to sell it to Google or Amazon and whatnot. And that's okay, but it kind of comes off as, VCs want missionaries, not mercenaries. So they're kind of weird. They're mercenary and they're going to help you sell your business, but they don't want you to come off that way. It's a weird nuance that you have to kind of think through. So don't have that in your pitch deck. But, the best exits, what starts to happen, like that first one I mentioned with Rogue Wave, we had approached these companies to be sales channels for us, got to know them, and we kind of got to date a little bit before we got married. Those are the best kind of transactions because they're, you're not really selling the business, you're finding a partner to sell your business into. Once you get to scale, revenue growth solves most ills. That's another thing I've learned is if you can grow your revenue, then you're really onto something, and it just makes it infinitely more easy to raise venture capital, sell the company, and solves many of your other problems. So, if you're spending more than 1% of your time worrying about an exit, you're kind of doing startups wrong. You got to build a great product, get customers, hire a great team, chew away at that 99% of the time, and the exit will come. Sometimes I'll get founders that'll call me and they'll say, can you have a coffee meeting? I have an M&A offer and I need to meet with you in 3 hours. I'm like, okay. And they're like, what should I do? Should I sell my company? And I'm like, dude, that is not my decision. You have to decide, what you got into this for, and is this a fair valuation? And I can't really help you. I cannot be the person to answer that. It always surprises me. They haven't really thought about it until it happens. So it's really good to start thinking about, what would it take? And then, another thing that's kind of weird is we have this new, used to be you would go your own or you would get bought. Now there's this middle ground called private equity, where a lot of times they'll buy 55% of your company and keep you on. I tend to have no desire to do that because, if you recall, I don't like having a boss, right? So I can tell you that's not going to work out well, and it's going to ruin our relationship. So that's off the table for me, but a lot of founders, especially first-time founders, there's a lot of good things there because these companies buying them are like Vista Equity, where they have this cool playbook. This is their pitch. I don't know how true it is, where they come in and help you outsource all your friends to India and make more money and get a double exit. I'm a little skeptical about that if you can't tell. But it's gotten more complicated, so you need to kind of think through, earlier on, would I do one of these private equity things? What's that look like? Is it for me or not? So something to think about. The other, the word exit is I can tell you 100%. Anyone that buys you is going to keep you around for at least a year, and the common thing is 2 to 3 years now. So it is not an exit event for the founder. And it's, for a guy that doesn't like bosses, that year or 2 years is extremely painful. I've had a really rough time with that. And so it's really a liquidity event. So think of it as that, as you get some liquidity, but you're still going to be in this thing most likely for a long time. So that's part of the decision. I find a lot of technical founders especially, they're like, all right, I need to just hire a salesperson to go sell this thing I built. And you can't really do that because you have to start selling it yourself as a founder to really, anything that gets between you and that customer feedback and that customer pain dilutes the whole thing and makes it much harder to get to product market fit. So this isn't a forever thing, but at least until you get to, I would say, 20, 30K a month, just as a rule of thumb, there's obviously exceptions on either side of that. You should be involved in the selling, and that will make the whole thing go a lot faster through product market fit. Yeah, and at the end of the day, you got to build a great product, right? There's no shortcuts to that. The one thing, so at ChannelAdvisor, we got up to about 100 companies, and our head of sales came. His name was MJ. A lot of people know MJ. He's like, Scott, we should have a user conference. We're going to go to Pinehurst. We'll get 50 prospects and 50 customers and put them in a room, and you'll do a keynote. And I was like, you want me to stand in front of 100 people and do a hell no user conference. Ultimately, he wore me down, and we did a user conference. You'll love this. By the end of ChannelAdvisor, I was speaking in front of like 5,000 people. It was ridiculous. As a guy that hates public speaking. And then, so that was painful. But sure enough, it was like, it would accelerate our pipeline every time we did it. It was like getting people in a room together and kind of trapping them somewhere. Having happy customers next to prospects, magical stuff. And the feedback we would get from our customers was just like so high volume and high throughput and high quality that it was definitely something to consider. One of my things is I do a lot of kind of extreme transparency. If any of you ever come to the Raleigh-Durham area, feel free to reach out to me. We'll do a tour. And one of my lifelong goals, aside from owning Lamborghini, is to have a wall-sized dashboard. So at Spiffy, we have, just like this, we have a projector on the wall that has real-time data of what's going on all the time. And everyone in the company can log into a system and see what's the revenue for that day, what's going on, what's the mix, everything's super transparent. Because what we want to do is push all that data as low as we can down to the technician level wherever it makes sense, so that everyone can make smart decisions. And they're not constantly like, well, if only I'd known that Raleigh was slow today, I would have done X, Y, and Z. Everyone knows that Raleigh is not slow today. We sold out at like 8 a.m. But let's pretend Raleigh was slow today. Everyone knows that this is going on.